In this video, we are going to look at a worksheet, kind of fill some things in, and then I'm going to have you do some of the problems together. What we're looking at here is congruent triangles, which we've already talked about. They're triangles with the same shape and size. When we have congruent triangles, this means that all corresponding parts, and that means our angles and sides, are congruent. Okay, so when we have congruent triangles, that means all the corresponding parts are congruent. These corresponding parts are angles and sides. So when we write what's called a congruency statement, we say when triangles are congruent, we can also write a congruency statement. This is a congruency statement. It says that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So a valid congruency statement must match all corresponding angles and sides. So here's where we need to look at the diagram of the triangle, and we need to look at where the letters are placed when we describe the triangle. So for instance, on this triangle here, we have A has one congruency marking. Over here, ED has one congruency marking. Here, BC has 2, and EF has 2, and then AC has 3, and so does FD. So when I look at the order of how this congruency statement is written, I see that AB is congruent to DE, and then I see that BC is congruent to EF, and then if I take the ones on the ends, I can see that AC is congruent to DF. And it also works with the angles. Here, angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle E is congruent to angle B, the two markings, and then the third angle marking is angle C is congruent to angle F. So all of these angles and sides need to match up on our congruency statements, and we're going to be doing a lot of that in this unit, so we're going to practice a little bit. The other thing that we have here is, this is a theorem. It's called corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, or we can call it CPCTC. So we're going to write in here, it's corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, so if we know that two triangles are congruent, then we know that every pair of corresponding parts is also congruent. And that's kind of what we just described right here. Okay, so on this practice sheet here, this says list all congruent angles and sides given the congruency statement. So the key here for this one is I know that JKL, triangle JKL, is congruent to triangle PQR. So I can say here that angle J is congruent to, this is in the first position, so is angle P. Those angles are congruent. I also would say angle K, it's in the middle, is congruent to angle Q. And that in the last position, angle L is congruent to angle R. I also need to look at the sides. JK, and I'm going to put a JK, and I'm going to put a line above it, because we're talking about a line segment, is congruent to PQ. And I'm looking at the position of these letters within each written phrase here. It's not really a phrase, just the letters. And then I'm going to say KL is congruent to second, third position, second, third, QR. And then I'm also going to say that JL is congruent to PR. Okay? So I've done that one for you. Another way that we could write a valid congruency statement here is we could also say KLJ is congruent to triangle QRP. Now that's written differently as this one, but there's more than one way we can write a congruency statement. Here we just need to check and make sure it makes sense. Are the J and the P still in the same position? Yes. Are the K and the Q still in the same position? Yes. Are the L and the R? Yes. JK, I see there are 2 on the end. I've got J here and K there. And then PQ, they're right. KL, this is QR. And then we have JL and PR. Okay. All right, so I would like for you to do number 2. Go ahead and pause the video, and then you can check your answer. All right, so there is your answer for number 2. So you can go ahead and pause the video and check that. Okay, last thing down here is that it says given, and they give us a congruency statement. Complete each of the following statements. So I've got a triangle over here, but really what I need to look at are the positions and the order of our letters when we're writing this congruency statement. So here, KM would be congruent to AC. I'm going to let you do CY. Well, actually, I'm going to do that. So CY would also be the same thing as MP, or you could write PM, either one, because it's a segment. And then PK, that would be the same thing as YA or AY. So I'll write that one as YA. Just make sure you're grabbing the right positions. And then over here, I think that you can do the angles by looking at these, and then you're going to finish off the congruency statements here. They're just writing them in 2 different ways. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video. All right, and then there are your answers for D through H. Okay, so this basically just gets us started with looking at congruency statements and dealing with the angles and the sides. All right, that's it.